Welcome to our podcast. As you know, we do a weekly podcast interviewing a cybersecurity thought leader on different topics. And today's topic is going to be how to protect yourself from phishing and other similar types of scams. And we're very happy to have Arun Buduri here. Welcome, Arun.
Good morning, Fred. Hey.
Arun is a longtime cybersecurity executive. He's a technology leader, an entrepreneur, company founder, and former president of an anti-phishing company. So he's highly qualified to talk about this. So we want to talk a little bit about the nature of the threats that are out there. As you may have read, in this pandemic world that we're in, scammers are coming out in greater numbers. Everybody's online more and more. So Arun, what are some of the types of scams or threats or attack vectors that we've seen come up in the last couple of months?
So cyber attacks have been around for a long time, right? And of course, with this pandemic, the attacks have gone up tremendously. Now, in terms of different types of attacks, there are phishing attacks. There's attachments with malware and DDoS attacks. But if you're looking at the landscape of all types of attacks, the most prevalent and the most easiest for the attackers to get into is very simple phishing attacks, which it looks like an email is coming from someone you know, and they want you to click on a link or open an attachment or execute a financial transaction. Now, there are, of course, different types of other complicated attacks, but this is by far the most easiest for any attacker to pull.
So is a phishing, I just got an email here from Captain Cook's Casino. So it doesn't seem like it was target. So is a phishing attack a more sophisticated version of kind of the spam that we all get? That it is the definition, it has to be targeted to the individual? Is that sort of the threat here?
Yeah, so let's look at that, right? So there's phishing and there's spam and there's junk, right? So spam is let's take a Nigerian prince, right? So the Nigerian prince in one way is at least trying to say that he is a Nigerian prince. He's not claiming to be PayPal or your bank, is at least saying, I'm Nigerian prince and I've got like $1 billion for you. Mm-hmm. And so that's spam, spam, junk, whatever you call it. But phishing is something where someone claims to be an entity or a person that you know. So they are faking an identity of your bank, your university, or a website, or a service that you're using. Or it could look like a friend that you know, an email that's coming from them. So it's a fake email. And it looks too good to be true, or it preys on your fear, trying to click on your link to say things like, hey, we saw suspicious account activity. Click here to review your account activity. Things like those.
So we've had messages like that, suspicious account activity or tech support. So what have you seen out there in the last couple of months related to the pandemic? Are there new types of sort of schemes that scammers are coming up with? And what do you see in the next few months? Are these likely to stick around? Or?
Yeah, so phishing in general, so if you look at the overall data breaches and hacks that happen, 93% of all attacks start with phishing. And there are different types of phishing attacks, but most predominantly 90% or more are to steal your passwords. So while there is a lot of talk about malware, ransomware, and other things, the most effective way of hacking into an account that attackers use, and the most easiest, is to send a simple email as though it looks like it's coming from someone you know, just to steal your passwords. Now, these attacks have, of course, been increasing over the past 10, 20 years, but just in the last 1 month, a Barracuda report suggested that these attacks have increased 700%. and they are a lot based on the COVID-19 theme. So things like it could be an email that suggests a person that you recently came in contact with has been tested positive, so please click here. So playing into your fears, or if you lost your job, playing into that side, saying as though it looks like it's coming from your state, asking you to register for unemployment, or maybe a job offer from a potential company that might look too good to be true. So I think these kind of attacks have increased a lot in just the last 1 month, and I think these will continue to rapidly increase in the next several months.
Right. So hopefully the virus will be contained soon, but the consequences of this pandemic are going to be around for years, right? So I think, do you think that scammers will try to leverage that situation?
Absolutely. And even if you look at the funding that has been released for small businesses, right? Even that, there are scammers trying to get hold of that money. And either directly by registering a fake business, or through small businesses that have received those funding, but it looks like it's coming from the funding organization or your state saying, hey, your check is ready, click here to register. And then you jump on it because, oh my God, I got my money. And then you would give your account information. So these kind of attacks are definitely going to increase, especially with schools being shut down. It could look like an email from your school or from your former employer, possibly asking you to take you back, that you got your job back. So I think there are a lot of lures. If it is too good to be true, then it is.
That's a good term, lures. So that's kind of a pretty scary scenario. Can you walk us through what can the average citizen, a lot of us are at home now, what can we do now and in the next few months, and what can we do to protect ourselves from this? You read a lot about don't click on links, but is there anything else people could do to avoid being captured? Hooked?
Yeah, so if you look at the statistics of people working from home, historically, it's been less than 20%. But because of the pandemic, it's now more than 90% of people are working from home. And majority of the country is run by small businesses, right? And not every company has the luxury of providing a company-owned laptop to every person working from home. So they now have to rely on your personal devices at your home. So there are several measures you can take. So first thing, update your operating system with the latest patches, the latest version. Update the browsers, install all kinds of, if you think, antivirus, anti-malware. Look for at least the free versions, even if your company isn't providing one. Look for the free versions of the top AV anti-malware, and use a secure browser. So one of the top three, at least one of the top three, you'll be good: Chrome, Firefox, or Edge, or Safari. And use the secure. A lot of these antivirus and anti-malware software also have browser extensions. So make sure you install those browser extensions for additional protection. So as many layers of protection that you can add, the better it is. And if you require a VPN to connect your work, I would strongly recommend using one if there's a possibility. And don't fall for the free ones. Use very reputed VPNs to connect to work.
Is there any way that the average user could kind of keep up to date on the types of scams that are out there? I mean, we can, read the newspapers. Are there any good sources of information? I had the experience recently of going to sites to check my internet speed. And I think a lot of these are maybe slightly shady sites that they're going to install applications on your computer, change your registry. So is there any way the average user can keep up with what's going on in terms of the nature of these phishing attacks, or not?
Absolutely. So now there's a mix of these attacks where you're looking at your work email and your personal email, and VPNs also could potentially expose a risk to the organization, because now you're mixing your personal work, your personal stuff and your work on the same machine with a secure connection back to your company. And you're possibly opening up a door that way. So you have to be very careful in not clicking links, which is a very tough thing to do, especially if you're in sales and marketing and functions where you have to click on links. And attachments are also extremely crucial, that you know who the email is coming from. Now, something that I would strongly recommend doing in terms of your browser setting, this gets a little bit technical, but there is a setting in your browser where it automatically opens files right now, but that is the default setting in Chrome or Firefox. That is why as soon as you click on a link, if it's a document, it automatically opens the document. It doesn't go through the extra steps. So I would strongly recommend turning off that feature and enabling the permission that says first ask to save the file before opening it. So if you look at these phishing attacks, what they do is it looks like it's coming from someone you know, and there's a link on it, and they want you to click on it. So there are a lot of these attacks where as soon as you click on it, it opens a malicious file and you got ransomware or malware immediately. And it depends, that attack relies on the fact that you have the setting enabled where this file is automatically opened. Now, if you turn off that feature, then what happens is that file ends up getting saved to your disk, and you have to manually go double click and open that file. There's at least one more step the user will have to do. So what happens is, let's say it looks like it's an email from your state talking about unemployment, and you're lured into it and you click on it. You're expecting to see a website of your state, and rather you don't, and suddenly there's a file that's downloading. That at least should get your warning lights to go off to say, hey, okay, I clicked on a link, that's bad, but luckily it's not running anything, so I just hit cancel.
That's a good idea. So you get some more time to think about it. But I have one more question. So when you let's say you do get an attachment from the state, it may be spoofed or fake or phishing type email. Can you rely on your email software to protect you against things like that, or not?
Yeah, that's a very that's a very tough question. Now, yeah, it depends on what services you use. Are you using the built-in free protection by Gmail or Outlook or Microsoft Office 365, or does your company have additional layer built in the backend so that all the attachments are scanned by default? So that's why you need the additional antivirus, anti-malware installed on your laptop, that even, for example, even in case you got lured and ended up double clicking that attachment, there's at least an added level of protection on your machine to stop that.
Okay, all right.
And there's another data point that came up from, I think, the government as well, that a lot of the attacks that are coming up now are pretty much repackaged of previous attacks, repackaging of previous attacks. So that also means that it is important that you install these AV and anti-malware, because they already have signatures of these attacks, then it'll be effective in stopping them.
That's some good news, I guess, right? So they're recycling old attacks.
yeah, but you cannot rely just on that fact.
Yeah.
Attacks are always evolving.
Yeah, always. Okay, so thank you so much. I think it's a very scary area. We're going to have more of this. It's not going to stop. It's like escalated in the last couple of months. It's going to keep on going because there's so many, as you said, possibilities for different lures for people out there. So, and listeners, sorry, go ahead.
I just have one comment here, that In terms of the future of these attacks, and can they be ever stopped? Can they be ever eliminated? So as I mentioned, phishing attacks, there are different types, but the biggest majority is to steal your passwords. And they do that because passwords exist and they're easy to get from users. So in terms of future as where the industry is headed, I believe it is headed towards a password-less future. So completely eliminating passwords, so at least eliminating the 80 to 90% of those attacks that try to steal your passwords. It won't happen in a day or a year, but I think the industry is moving towards that.
That's another positive thought. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining, Arun, and thank you all for listening and watching, and stay safe at home, hopefully not too much longer, and online. Thanks so much. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Fred.